Never in the history of the world have the merchants of obscenity had available to them the modern facilities for disseminating this filth. Disseminating this filth. The onslaught of the communist masters of deceit.
Pinko, Commie, Slutz. Pinko, Commie, Slutz. Pinko, Commie, Slutz. Pinko, Commie, Slutz.
Hello, Marlo's here. Steve's here too.
Hello.
We got two Speedy Gonzalez's here.
Yeah.
Gonzalez's.
Gonzali. So, all right, I'm just going to say it. Most of my social interactions, I realize, are generally like an Alzheimer's patient who knows they're supposed to recognize someone.
Okay.
So what was the deal with you in California? Sorry if you already told me and I forgot.
My boyfriend was out there for a while.
Yeah.
And then I went to meet him, and we went into the desert where we might move to next year.
Ooh.
Ooh.
So
A lot of clubs in the desert?
No, but we
just doing comedy for the peyote gods.
Yeah, we're going to do a comedy peyote festival. We're going to make everybody sleep in tents. It's how my cult starts.
No, I mean, totally. If I was like a Silicon Valley bro who was selling slaves but like Uber, I would totally go to your peyote comedy show.
Yeah.
I think this is an expansion of our brand. Just call it Pinko Commie Cult.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Pinko Commie Compound.
Anyway.
It's going to Waco that shit.
I don't know what you guys have on the agenda, but throw Queen's Gambit somewhere there because I've been wanting to talk about that shit for a while now.
Well, yeah, I watched it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I had one person reach out and tell me they felt I resembled that woman, the actress.
You do have very large eyes.
Yeah. I did enjoy it. I wasn't familiar with the book it is based on, but
yeah, I wasn't either.
Apparently, it is beloved by many people.
Every fucking chess video on YouTube right now is those nerds playing against the chess.com's Beth Harmon bot. It's like, it is all over internet chess. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, everybody wants to get dommed by by Beth. I definitely really liked the miniseries. And sorry, spoiler alert, everyone. I really liked how somehow every man she'd ever been romantically involved with all teamed up to help her.
Yeah, no, that was great. Oh, yeah.
I was like,
it's just like the we fuck Beth Harmon club. Let's figure out her last game during the adjournment. Yeah, that shit ruled.
Loved it. I loved it.
Oh my god.
So much.
Yeah, no, so much about that series. Fucking yeah. My one issue with it, and I think this is partially a me problem, which I think the first step is admitting it. I was like kind of shit-faced through most of my watch through of the series, and I didn't get that she actually had an addiction problem at all. She just seemed kind of fun to me. Like she seemed like she would be fun to be around.
So, okay, I did find that whatever made up amphetamine, drugs, or whatever she's consuming these colorful pills, it did seem super fun, and I definitely wanted to do that.
That's the one thing. They mentioned their tranks, and like you don't take tranks to get better at chess. Like, that's not how science works.
Well, it's almost like it's this amorphous, like it's drugs.
I mean, they did
thing.
call them tranquilizers at one point.
Yeah, they refer to them as tranquilizers, but they are a made-up drug. I did check that.
Okay.
And, of course, in the universe of the show, her taking this drug...
Which they also dropped fairly early on
Yeah.
as a central point. And I'll give them that. But, like, no, so my issue with her addiction is often, like, she just had dudes telling her she had a problem.
No, how you knew she hit rock bottom was when she was wearing too much mod makeup.
Yeah, and
When
it's like, I don't know. She has a house and, like, money and shit, and she, like, took, like, a 3-month hiatus from chess after a shitty loss she had against the best chess player in the world.
Yeah, I kind of thought, like, cool, rock on. And then it was
She was doing her.
a very severe turn where it's like, oh, she's got too many wine bottles.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, that was the one thing that I had an issue with. But yeah, no, there's a lot I really like about the series. I think it had, and especially for, you know, Netflix and their, you know, Stranger Things season, whatever the fuck, and all their shit. I think it had a weirdly pro-Soviet message.
Yeah, it was unusually friendly to the Soviet, as we know, as we've discussed.
Yeah, so I have a few specific examples there. So, first of all, there's the line, why are the Soviets good? Because they help each other, and also because the Soviet Union appreciates and loves chess. We're the best chess players in the United States. We're playing in this high school gym that no one is here on these shitty plastic boards. And meanwhile, the Soviet Union, these guys are treated like celebrities. And also they help each other out. And in America, it's all about this competition. And then there's the fact that Borgov, who, if you're not a chess nerd, you don't know, Borgov is supposed to be Spassky. And the one thing that everyone has always said about Spassky is he's the nicest human being to ever walk the face of the earth. And they portray Borgov like that. He respects Beth's chess playing. He respects her, like, struggle and background, and just generally is a nice guy who respects her. He's not some chess playing robot. Meanwhile, when she goes to the Soviet Union to play, she has this American implicit CIA handler guide who is portrayed as kind of a paranoid idiot. And he, at some point...
They send somebody who doesn't even know how chess works.
Right, and at some point he implies to Beth that Borgov might try and defect. And that never comes up. That never happens, because why the fuck would he defect? He's treated like a fucking celebrity in the Soviet Union, and he loves his life there. And then there's the part where specifically she's asked to, and it's not beat you over the head, but if you know, you know, she's clearly supposed to be Bobby Fischer as a stand-in.
Excuse me, she did not have a lot of problematic views, at least.
Bobby Fischer really didn't in 1972 either.
Yeah.
But the parts from Bobby Fischer are specifically, she's asked to, like, sign on to some anti-communist statement that she just kind of is like, no, that's stupid. I just want to play chess. And I don't really care about communism, and why would I do that? And she turns down a shitload of money to do that. And yeah, overall, the series had a very weirdly pro-Soviet message. There's also another scene that, like, I think from a chess nerd and literary perspective, I really like, that I wanted to talk about. Also, yeah, I mean, also the last game, I will just say, it's based on, I think, a 1992 game, but it's also based on Game 6 of the 1972 World Championships, because one, Borgov gets up at the end and applauds, and two, and this kind of leads into that one scene I like, she plays the Queen's Gambit for literally the first time in the entire fucking series, which Game 6 of 1972. Bobby Fischer, very uncharacteristically to his play style, played a Queen's Gambit, won the game, and it was such a beautiful win that Spassky stood up and applauded him. So it was very fun if you are a chess nerd, just the way they like work that shit in there.
Well, I think that's something I enjoyed about the show is that often when there is a work of fiction that's about something very specific, people within that subculture will rush in to be like, oh, this isn't that really how it is. They're making this as bullshit. They're whatever.
Everyone in the chess world fucking loves this show.
And yes, that's what I'm finding is everyone loves it. But it also completely appeals to people who don't know how to play chess.
Yeah.
And
everyone else also loves this show.
Yeah, it's probably inspiring a few people to at least try to learn, which is always my favorite thing when people embark on a new journey because they saw it in a show or movie.
Hey, that's how I started playing
American.
chess.
It's very American.
Searching for Bobby Fischer got me to...
Fair.
Yeah.
Actually, Queen of Katwe is also very good. I would say is the spiritual successor to Searching for Bobby Fischer. Much like Searching, it is kind of geared towards younger kids. And this is the first time I've seen a chess thing like that is actually geared towards adults that doesn't suck like Pawn Sacrifice.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, the literary thing I was thinking about is there's an interview she does with People magazine when she is in high school and just won some, I think, the state championship. I don't really remember. And the woman for People magazine, it says, as an orphan, do you view the queen as a mother figure and the king as a father figure? And Beth Harmon, like, kind of just goes, no, that's the dumbest fucking thing I ever heard. And it reminded me, and I would actually ask Matt to clip this in if my memory is in fact correct, is Magnus Carlsen on the Colbert Report, whenever the fuck Colbert Report was on. And, you know, Colbert obviously is playing a buffoon in his interviews, and he goes to Magnus, oh, so do the chess pieces talk to you and say, hey, move me, move me? And like Magnus Carlsen just kind of looked at him and was like, no, that's the dumbest fucking thing I ever heard. And it's a very common trope where non-chess players will often like anthropomorphize the pieces, whereas chess players, it's a problem you have to solve.
But a lot of people like the game. And what do you see when you look at a chessboard? Are you seeing like little, wooden pieces on a board? Or are you seeing some sort of fourth dimensional tesseract? Do the pieces turn to you in your mind and talk to you and say, move me, Magnus? Do you see the board differently than a normal, average, not genius?
No, not really. I just see the board, the pieces, everything, and then I think of patterns, what to do next, and so on. But the pieces in general, they are just tools for me.
So they don't talk to you.
No, not
too much.
Not too much. No.
But that brings up the title of the series, which is Queen's Gambit, which Beth Harmon, other than the last game, which for literary and chess reasons is the exception, she never plays the Queen's Gambit in the entire fucking series. She is very much a Bobby Fischer player. She opens E4 as white all the time. And so the reason the show is called the Queen's Gambit is not due to any chess reason. It's anthropomorphizing the queen as a feminine figure associated with the main character of the series. So it almost is like they're making fun of their own title. And I don't know if that was intended or not, but I kind of liked it.
I think it can work on that level, but it also works in a less specific pop culture way where even if people often do not know how to play chess, they have likely been told in some form of media or another that, like, oh, well, the queen's actually the most powerful one on the board in chess. Oh, whoa, isn't that, nifty? Because we don't let women do that for reals.
I did look up Queen's Gambit on Wikipedia just to kind of brush up on it. The series, and the opening comes up first, and then you click on disambiguation, and when you click on the disambiguation page, there's a whole subsection of episodes of various shows titled Queen's Gambit.
Okay.
There's 8 different shows that have an episode called Queen's Gambit. It's actually kind of funny. But to me that interview almost was sort of a self-referential, hey, we know we did this, but, there you go. Where they are because chess players don't view the queen as a lady, they view it as a tool to play chess with. And Beth Harmon doesn't view the queen as a mother. She views it as a tool that she plays chess with. And she doesn't open with Queen's Gambit at all. Except, again, the last thing, because that's this convoluted reference to Game 6 of 1972. That's kind of what I wanted to say about Queen's Gambit. I do love the fucking series. It's pretty great.
Well, as I said, I really enjoyed that all of the men she was involved with were so invested in her that the logical conclusion
it was Avengers Assemble.
Yeah, it was
around
great. I would love to see more of this in fiction. Just all of women's lovers.
Fuck a dude. He becomes a magic genie who helps you when you need it.
who and he wants you to win.
Yeah.
So I did like that a lot. The show was very aesthetically pleasing. Like I said before, it did sort of feel like they were tracking her alcoholism with how she was dressing herself. So sort of at kind of a perceivable bottom, she's wearing very kind of ridiculous 60s eyeliner where she's drawn her lower lash line way below the eye, which is something that you do see in makeup from that time, but even at that time it was a little much for during the day. So it's a signal to no, I mean, again, my one issue is it was so, especially that Harry dude talking to her about Morphe going crazy, and it's you have no, the point where you're at, maybe she has a problem, maybe she doesn't, but you have no basis for drawing that conclusion at all. She wasn't drinking that much. And, and then the other dude, mustache cowboy man. They're at a bar one time after she beat him for, I think it was the U.S. Championships. She's getting shit-faced at a bar after she became U.S. champion. And it's and he's oh, do you always drink this much? And it's yo, fuck you, Judgy. Go win the U.S. championships, you fucking loser.
This sounds like This sounds like you projecting into the character.
Yeah, well, you know what?
I've seen you yell.
Let people drink.
I've seen you yell at bartenders who didn't fill up your glass high enough to your liking, or hesitate when you ask for a refill at an open bar, and then you curse them out.
I don't think that's true.
Well, I think we have discussed before, there are definitely varying degrees of what people feel is too much substance use.
Yeah, and Beth Harmon is a cool lady who just likes being cool.
I also love when there's drug use in a show that makes it seem so appealing. I, too, want to take some colorful pills and see an upside-down 3D chessboard on my ceiling.
Yeah, which, again, if you're trying to get better at chess, uppers, not downers. Just going to say that.
Yeah, you want to at least have Red Bull. sponsored.
Yeah,
Sponsoring your rise to fame.
like Hikaru Nakamura.
Oh, I also liked that they allowed the series to end without her being really with one of the guys.
Oh, yeah, no, that was nice. Yeah, sure. I'll give you that.
I
Yeah,
liked it.
she didn't have to find love at the end. Yeah.
And yet, again, all the men, they just love her so much.
Yeah.
And she's so good, they just want her to win. I liked it.
Yeah, anyway, the most communist show on Netflix since Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, I'm going to say.
That's good. I say that's fair.
I just watched the greatest movie of all time,
Which is...
Con Air.
Yeah.
I'm still reeling from it. Like, it just hits you over the head for like 2 hours straight.
And some of Dave Chappelle's best work.
Some of Dave Chappelle's, he makes it like a third of the way through the movie before he's left trying to grab onto the undercarriage of the airplane and then comes out smiling. It's great.
I like it. I've been also watching Schitt's Creek.
Oh, I
Finally.
still am refusing to watch that show because, like, people like it. I don't know. I'll probably watch it. It sounds like Arrested Development.
That was my rationality for not watching Queen's Gambit.
Oh, yeah, that's...
What, is because people liked it?
Yeah, that's fair,
I
but, like,
watched it
also, dude,
before-
it's some of the best chess shit that's ever been made.
Yeah, I don't care.
You do. Stop it.
You could just let yourself enjoy something.
No, I enjoy Con Air. I did watch Good Lord Bird.
Yeah, I did too. It's all right.
I did not watch it, which is weird for me because I am super into abolitionist John Brown. And when you read about him, how he was super cool, but seemed like an absolute wild man. A religious, pious,
They portray him
wild
as
man.
Yeah, it's okay. I don't know. I'm torn on the series. I was torn from episode 1, and then I finished it, and I'm still torn.
Yeah, was not satisfying and not very...
I mean, it kind of grew on me. I will say I did actually cry a little bit in the last episode. It wasn't as bad as it could have been. I just... that, like, whole fucking crazy John Brown trope just kind of annoys me. It really just doesn't capture what was going on in history at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And very much transposes modern attitudes to his time.
I heard that there's some stylistic choices that are obviously anachronistic, but that, like, they're straight up, like, woke speak.
I think that's a little overblown, though it is there. I know what they're talking about. But, like, okay, so to me, my biggest issue is the fact that modern people don't understand that Bleeding Kansas was literally a war. Like, it wasn't like, oh, yeah, we're at war or whatever. It was, there were militias fighting each other for political reasons with guns, and they were at war. And the idea that it's like, oh, you know, our sponsors, you killed people in Kansas. It's like, yeah, everyone was killing people in Kansas. It was a war.
One of the things Matt Chrisman pointed out was that they referred to one of the militias as the rebels. And he's like, what do you mean? There was no rebels. This isn't the Confederate. The Confederacy hasn't been established yet.
Yeah, but there were these two sides that were fighting each other. And the idea that anyone would have been turned off by John Brown's violence. Like, yeah, Harper's Ferry was seen as an extremist act, but John Brown was not seen as an extremist in Bleeding Kansas. He was seen as one side of two factions that were fighting a war, and he was at least doing a good job for the abolitionists at a time when the abolitionists were very decidedly losing. That's how he was seen at the time. It wasn't like, oh yeah, that crazy violent man is being crazy and violent. Like,
well, I don't know if that's completely fair. There were people that were like, John Brown's too extreme.
At Harper's Ferry, yes.
Yeah.
At Harper's
I mean, didn't Frederick Douglass kind of like distance himself before that?
Frederick Douglass distanced himself where he thought Harper's Ferry would fail. He distanced himself, he ultimately did not lend any real support for Harper's Ferry, and there's disputes that he said he would. And so in that case, sure, he distanced himself, but with Bleeding Kansas, again, like, it was two factions of an army fighting a war against each other. They had militias that were shooting guns at one another and were killing each other on both sides. Mm-hmm. It was, by all, the Civil War doesn't break out overnight because Lincoln won the election. The Civil War breaks out because there's just this total breakdown of order and institutions that has been brewing forever. And Bleeding Kansas was essentially this low-intensity conflict that was going on in the wake of that breakdown.
All right, going back to what Bunny said about the modern, injecting a modern message onto the series. The problem I had the most with was the character of Onion as narrator, protagonist, and I guess drag queen. Bunny, you haven't seen it, but do you know about this Onion character?
Yeah, I mean, they were talking about it at work. So I know, but I'm actually pretty familiar with the historical John Brown.
Does that have any historical basis? Because it didn't seem like it.
It wasn't something that rung a bell for me. I liked it because John Brown did indeed have a son named Salmon.
That is true.
So I wondered if it was a sort of homage to a food name, I suppose.
Salmon is in the series.
Salmon is in the series? Oh, that's good. I love that John Brown he had multiple people in his family named Salmon, too.
Well, okay.
Salmon Brown.
In the series, there is a character was he a slave? I think he was a slave.
Yeah, he was a slave.
The son of a slave.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, who died, and he said to John Brown, because John Brown came and killed the master, right? And then took him, and he said his name was Henry, and John Brown misheard it as Henrietta, and then for the entirety of the series treated him like a girl and dressed him up like a girl, and he went along with it. And all the white people treated him like a girl. Most of the black people treated him, or as soon as they met.
Why are you dressing like a sissy?
Why are you dressing like a sissy?
Yeah. No, it's a line that was spoken many a time in that series.
Every slave does, not every black person, because Frederick Douglass never recognized that he's dressing up as a woman. And I find it interesting, but by and large, it was mostly a racial split. And, I found this to be kind of that, the modern analysis, kind of that John Brown was too crazy to see Henry for who he is. And he just used the oppression as like an objectified thing to save rather than someone to understand.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that really bothered me.
Yes, but then as the series went along, I realized all the white people couldn't see him for who he was. And I realized that it was this broader commentary on white people treat us like objects and aren't looking to understand who we are. And I found that to be very much a heavy-handed message, to the point where one white person would be talking to Onion and he'd turn around and then a slave would be like, why are you trying to play here? Or, why are you dressing like a sissy? Like in the same frame, to the point where it almost became this in-joke throughout the series. And I found that to be part of, this modern discussion about, I guess, segregation of or white knight kind of.
Yeah, and they couldn't just let John Brown be the good guy that John Brown actually was. Like, they say what John Brown's ideology is.
Oh, that's what somebody mentioned to me, is that somebody literally used the phrase "white
in the first
savior"
episode.
In the first episode.
That was Onion.
Like, oh,
Onion as the narrator.
Yeah, well, he has this line, and I will say the series kind of improved from the first episode. It still left me a little disappointed, but yeah, there's this line about, the freedom John Brown's offering is no freedom at all. And it's like, John Brown, they mention it in the series. They literally objectively state John Brown's ideology was that we are all children of God. God doesn't make distinctions, and nor shall we. And he literally did believe in that and lived it to the fullest logical extent. There wasn't any sense of, John Brown thinks of himself as this savior or whatever the fuck.
Or like that he thought of himself as somebody who would go down in history in glory. Like
he literally thought God commands us to treat all of his children as equals, and slavery is obviously an affront to that. And like, there's no, he had a very simple logical theory that, you kind of have to hand it to him. And he absolutely lived his life as if that were true. He wasn't trying to be this savior. He was just trying to say, hey, all of those things I think about the Bible are real, and this is what I ought to do about it.
Well, also like somebody of this time who was a real kind of Bible thumping believer who's looking around and going, holy shit, look at this explicit opportunity to do God's work. It's interesting to me that there weren't so many more people with the same attitude, but there were more people than we generally imagine, because Americans are very into the idea of people in the past, like that was just the time, like they didn't know any better yet. When for all of American chattel slavery, white people who were witness to this were like, some of them were like, this is fucked up. It is not good. It bothers me very much. And, only had so much power because it was a profit motive.
And okay, so that's the one aspect. The other aspect is outside of John Brown, how other white people were at the time. And that's a thing, and maybe it's outside of the scope of the series, but that's a thing that like Americans don't understand fucking at all, is where the free staters and the northern abolitionists were at the time, where it's like, you're a farmer from Connecticut. You've never traveled more than 10 miles from the place you were born in your life. Fucking Virginia, Alabama, that all might as well be the moon to you. And also, you don't really like black people. You're kind of a racist person. And yet, at a certain point, you're voting for a president with the explicit understanding that if this guy is president, it's very possible that the nation will go to war with itself over slavery. And you're objectively looking at that cost-benefit analysis and saying, yeah, it makes sense to vote. And that aspect also isn't covered. Like the whole idea that like, John Brown was just seen as this radical moralist who was out of touch with everyone else kind of isn't entirely the case when you look at what the Kansas-Nebraska Act and Bleeding Kansas was really about, that led so many white people from the North who were in fact racist, who were in fact ambivalent about the morality of slavery, to say, no, we should murder people in order to stop the spread of slavery. And that part too isn't really addressed. And that's really the context of the time that John Brown is coming out of for people who aren't John Brown, for people who don't actually have a moral this is an egregious thing. This was a economic, socio-political battle that was taking place where people didn't have faith in the public order of federal institutions, that you had these rolling low-level, low-intensity wars going on that eventually exploded into the Civil War.
And it's treated as a culture war.
Yeah, it was
throughout the show. It's treated
right
fairly as a culture war, like how we would discuss abortion. Or
right. Yeah, and it was not.
And like when they go up north, it's most explicit.
Yeah, where it's just
Frederick Douglass and all the white women applauding Frederick Douglass as these like
it takes more than
liberal abolitionists.
Yeah, it takes more than liberal moralism to lead us into a civil war. It takes a otherwise sort of racist, hates black people bumpkin farmer from New England going, well, yeah, the plantation system likes to spread itself because if it doesn't spread it dies out. And eventually, if we don't stop this, the plantations are going to come to Connecticut and it's going to drive me out of business because I can't. It was these people just looking at the plantations as these like mega corporations that would
competition
completely destroy their lifestyle. And also, oh, by the way, with plantations, there comes black people, and I'm racist and I don't like black people. Like that was another aspect of it where it's like in the same sense that like it was kind of this weird NIMBYism almost where people reacting to like a prison or a mental health facility opening, the prospect of like a halfway house opening up on their block going like, I don't want those people here. They were literally, there was this idea that the slavers wanted to eventually make every state in the Union a slave state. And if we didn't stop them now, that would happen. And if that happened, say goodbye to small farm. That was a huge aspect that was going into it at the time. And those people supported John Brown. They didn't support the idea that we're all equal children under God, but they supported John Brown sticking it to those plantation assholes.
Yeah.
There was like he was a useful person.
The abolitionists were getting their asses kicked everywhere where these low intensity wars popped up. And John Brown was just this shining light of, holy shit, someone's actually winning this thing for us.
He had so many children.
Oh, yeah.
John Brown. I mentioned Salmon. And Owen. And I think John Brown also had a brother named Salmon, if I'm remembering correctly. Didn't one of his kids marry the beer guy? Sam Adams.
Wasn't Sam Adams well dead by then? Sam Adams was late 1700s. This is mid 1800s.
This is mid 1800s, or it's a different. I don't know. I feel like one of his girl children married somebody who's also his. I mean,
Owen,
but I don't recall.
Went on to be a officer in the Union. I would like to see Villick and Weidermeyer get more love because people know who John Brown is. No one knows who those people. And they were refugees from the failed revolution, also communist friends of Marx who settled in the Midwest, had military experience from 1848. They were like, oh, yeah, no, slavery is terrible. And absolutely were the most devoted officers in the Army. I think it was, Villick, basically well before when the official policy of the Union Army was, return the slaves to their owners because, we're doing that, right? Like, no, get to decide what to do with them, and I'm setting them free.
Yeah, there's also, I believe, a lot of anarchists, proper anarchists, who were abolitionists. But yes, but abolitionists existed from the advent of slavery in the colonies, mostly by fucking Quakers. But yes, so some people were like, this isn't good because of morals, and some people were like, this isn't good because of other interests we hold. I did get the sense from a lot of people that there seems to be an effort to decenter John Brown in this story that is essentially about John Brown in a way that some people perceived as being overly woke. But, I don't know.
Did you read
I don't know.
the article I sent you about the eco yogi?
Yes, yeah. They
Yes, they still do.
planted.
They do.
I am actually familiar. I used to go there
Yeah.
because it's right by my work. But it is
Crazy
overpriced. Like, even buy things are expensive.
It is insane. I couldn't
New York.
afford it until the pandemic hit. Like, until I started working all day and doing 50 deliveries a day, I couldn't even go near that place. 2 coffees and 2 pieces of avocado toast once cost me $34.
They sell at least $15 CBD joints,
Yeah.
Also, when the fuck?
So yeah, they're slumlords.
Seriously, this is pissing me off.
So have you ever met the woman?
I've seen her there, but no, because I don't.
Okay, so I had a weird. Okay,
there.
for anyone listening, there was this article that came out in August. Eco Yogi slumlords of Brooklyn, who it tells this harrowing tale. I check it out. It's in the cut of them kicking people out of an apartment building on Dean Street, which I drove by today and flipped off, which made me feel good. But yeah, there was a big protest in July because they were throwing people's stuff out of their home. There were like 8 to 10 people living there, and they were charging like $800 a room for like a shoebox to live in. Rats in the walls, all these things. And then as you keep going on, it gets weirder and weirder. It's a couple that were like fiancés that broke up recently. And because the woman started dating their Manny and fathered a child, or he fathered one of their children, and he's 22, and I've seen him working. Working in the Planted store, and I think he's given me coffee.
Damn.
And yeah, he was, when he's not giving out coffee, he's playing with those children.
There's this restaurateur who basically goes through these serial relationships where he gets married to a woman who has a background in a certain genre of cooking. They open a restaurant within that genre together, and then he cheats on her with another woman who's into a different genre of cooking, and then he gets divorced, that restaurant closes, and then he gets remarried and he opens up a new restaurant in a slightly different genre of cooking. And he's gone through like 5 different restaurants, and it fucking rules.
They had people working for free at their yoga spaces by participating in something called Karma Hours, which is like super funny because it's like not a real authentic use of the concept of karma. So, yeah, it was like the hits kept coming the more details you got in that story.
Incredible how awful these people are. And this woman once asked me for information from my job because her ex-fiance, who I now found out is like the slumlord sleaze guy who owns $30,000 wall of plants. He was looking for a job and wanted information from my business to help him get a job. And this is like minutes after I see her like playing with the children and the Manny and being affectionate. And I'm like, is it for him? Like, I couldn't tell if it was for the 22-year-old kid or some other guy. And apparently it was this other guy who she's still connected to. The point is, the city is suing them. In my opinion, good on de Blasio. I mean, he's fucked up so much during the pandemic. This is one of the first times I've been fully on his side. Yeah, they're making an example, and it's kind of a smokescreen, I'm sure. But how common is it, Marlo, he with experience?
Yeah, so I haven't read the article specifically, but okay, so generally speaking, for building code violations, that shit happens all the time. You like, if you're a large landlord, you're getting sued by the city it's in your budget. You're just getting sued by the city, and you'll get like, oh yeah, we're suing you for like a $50,000 fine that then becomes like a $500 fine on settlement. And that just happens all the time. With chronic, like, illegal evictions or that kind of shit, that's a little more rare. But like, your radiator broke and you didn't fix it fast enough, and we sent some inspectors over who determined your radiator was broken, and one of your tenants called 311 and we sent some inspectors over, and there's some like holes in the wall you gotta fix. And like, if you're a large landlord, you're constantly, that's just a part of the business.
Well, okay, so the terms of this were apparently they were moving back into the apartment, and that's why they were kicking all the other people out. This is while people were withholding rent during the early days of the pandemic.
Right.
Here's a paragraph from it. There isn't a more explicit symbol of housing market totally divorced from its human context than the eviction attempt at 1214 Dean Street. The tenants were largely in their 20s and 30s. Many were queer, black, or brown, and employed in low-wage service jobs. In April, after several of them were laid off, they told Genville and Brooks Church that they would be withholding their rent. The following month, they received a one-line email from Brooks Church informing them that the house would be put on the market within the next month or two. And on July 2nd, tenants say Brooks Church suddenly showed up at the house demanding they pay their rent. He woke up two women who were sleeping in a room on their top floor. They jumped up to dig money from their wallets. Another woman who had recently lost her job was in her room recovering from an emergency craniotomy to remove a mass of brain tumors. After Brooks Church left,
Christ.
she emailed Genville begging for a move-out date of August 15th. I'm under the most stress I've ever been in my whole life, she wrote. I hope you can empathize with my situation. I'm sorry this year has happened to anyone. Okay. I don't know who you are, Genville wrote back. Who is this? When she and Brooks Church showed up to the 1214 with their kids, they put the woman's belongings on the street.
Yeah, that's illegal.
Including the get well gifts she had received during her hospital.
That's incredibly illegal.
Oh man, that is so illegal. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of like literally just treated as burglary. Like you are not allowed to enter your tenant's apartment without permission.
That's why I wanted to bring the story to this, because we have an expert.
Yeah, that's all ungodly illegal in New York. And while housing court is closed, no, you weren't allowed to do evictions for any reason whatsoever. Right. It just is how it works. Like, you can't do evictions without a court proceeding. And if the courts are closed, you can't do evictions. And yeah, that sucks, I guess, if you're an asshole. Yeah, I mean, at the same time, sure, you can have rent accruing, and when courts reopen, you can start these proceedings for all the rent that accrued, and your tenants are kind of fucked if they can't pay it because they've been out of work because of the pandemic. But no, 100%, that's absolutely illegal. And yes, it is rare that the city would get involved in something like this, because usually the go-to procedure is the tenants would sue for an illegal eviction, and generally what ends up happening is the judge, if it's found to be an illegal eviction, the judge one, orders you to immediately restore the person to their tenancy, and two, it's treble damages, which treble is an old-timey word for triple, which is like literally whatever bill that the tenant can say, like, hey, I had to get a hotel room this night or whatever the fuck, gets multiplied by 3. If a landlord knocked on my door and said, get out of my apartment, I'd tell them to fuck off and go get a marshal. Like, that's what you do. You can't do that. Like, that's not...
I think early in the article, they talk about how he broke in and then he wouldn't leave for whatever.
Call the police.
Well, I think literally, they did call the police. And, well, that was the standoff. They called the police and the landlords called the police at the same time. The handyman started to change the locks. That's when people were forced out of the house.
You actually should call the police, and this is a situation where the police would, generally speaking, side with the tenants. Like, that is actually their prerogative in that case. So what'd the police do?
So they come in, the person who's getting kicked out. As Martinez approached 1214 from the street, she saw a few of her fellow tenants huddled on the steps outside. Grenville, a wiry blonde in her 40s, screamed at them, calling them squatters. Once inside, she roamed through the house, tenants say, with Brooks Church close behind. One tenant told Gothamist that Grenville had grabbed her by the wrist as she was getting dressed in her room, ordering her to get the fuck out. Martinez called 911. After a while, the police, when the handyman started to change the locks, several tenants decided it was better to leave, grabbing what they could and putting their belongings on the streets. After a while, the police arrived. When Martinez identified herself as the tenant, the cops said they were responding to a call from Grenville and Brooks Church, who had also apparently dialed 911. They told Martinez that the landlord said they had nowhere else to go. Since it was their house, police said they couldn't make the owners leave. They told Martinez to think of the family as her new roommates. At the same time, Grenville and Church could not legally remove the tenants of their own. Not only was the moratorium on evictions in place during the pandemic, but the law requires evictions to be carried out by a sheriff armed with a court order.
Yes.
So,
you can't.
Returning to her room, Martinez discovered that her mail had been spread out on her bed next to someone's discarded sun hat. Grenville and her kids eventually left. Brooks Church planted himself in the living room. He was sitting on my chair, just sitting there all night. And then they got in touch with local anti-gentrification groups and started a mass protest outside.
Yeah, no, that's weird. No, like, honestly, no, the police should have... You don't get to walk into someone else's apartment because you're the owner. You can't do that. The only time you can do that, and it's a thing within the industry, it's a joke / it's a illegal thing landlords do, is say you smelled gas. That's the, like,
euphemism.
That's the one situation where it's like, hey, do you need to get into your tenant's apartment and they're not home and they're not letting you in to the apartment and you need to get in there? Yeah, just say you smelled gas when they're not home and, like, break in. Like,
can we just discuss how inhumane these people are? How absolutely disgusting they treated their tenants? That it seemed to be a recurring way that they basically class war against whomever they felt was a means to their empire. Like, they did this to these tenants and built up, like, a mini real estate empire, and at the same time built up a yoga empire where they just employed people for no money in exchange for, like, karma hours or whatever. I don't know. Bunny,
I just think it's upon, like, looking into this, I do not see any kind of necessarily, they started with such good intentions and became this way. They kind of seemed like they were possibly always sort of shitty. But what's interesting to me is that when people buy property, it can very easily turn into buying multiple properties.
The thing that I thought you could speak to was the amount to which hippy-dippy, new age spiritualism and like chakras and yoga and...
I think that's what's interesting is that, like, despite them having this veneer of being ethical and, adhering to yogic principles, they are very much doing the same thing as what happens when, like, a working class person gets to sort of level up and become a property owner or business owner. And they just, more often than not, end up all behaving the same exploitive way. Not nearly to this threshold necessarily all the time, but it seems that no set of principles can inherently prevent landlords being bad. But I do think that element of, oh, wow, this is a unique space that has the novelty of the living wall, or, and a lot of yoga studios actually practice work study, right? Where you can volunteer to kind of do reception or whatever for a certain amount of hours, and those hours you can use to get free, not free, but you could, instead of paying for a yoga class. So I know that this is actually not unique necessarily, though it does sound like it was more abusive than your average yoga studio. But yeah, this idea that you can
where's the yoga
sort of live out these yoga principles.
Area. I think Area is like the kids zone, and then they turned it into like a brand that also did yoga.
That would be at 429 Bergen Street, Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Phone number 718-230-7495. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Just wondering, theoretically.
Yes.
If anybody wanted to pay a house call, I drive by it every day, so I'm going to be flipping it off. I would argue, Bunny, though, I would push back a little bit and say that in a lot of ways, this is implicit to a lot of New Age spiritualism and kind of end of history, post-2000 spiritual capitalism or human capitalism. That if you accelerate it enough, this is the end result of that type of fly a pride flag, and we're going to give all of these signifiers for being a good liberal, egalitarians and peace and love and virtue and principles, following a spiritual path, while at the same time very much being malevolent, exploitative, capitalist, entrepreneurial, destructive force of people they view as commodities rather than human beings.
After I read the article, I was just Googling about these folks. And the woman involved, a few years ago, she was arrested for shoplifting.
$2,000 worth.
Yeah, not a negligible amount.
She went with the Manny, and they both got picked up for $2,000 worth of stealing, which is not the first time.
First of all, how do you get caught? I just don't understand. What they thought they were doing. I worked at Whole Foods for 4 years, and every day saw people get caught with thousands of dollars worth of lifestyle. It was mostly lifestyle. You go into Whole Foods or Whole Wellness section where you just like hand creams that are like $75 a pop. And
I've absolutely thought about robbing the Union Square Whole Foods for caviar before.
Yeah.
I've 100% considered that.
I've dated people that have been stealing things and knew the people. Like the Union Square one, just
Like Whole Foods is not a good place.
Yeah,
to
but
shop
they
at.
have these things of caviar that are so tiny and $500
They're very tiny.
and
I know
$500
exactly
fucking
what you're
dollars
talking
for a
about.
thing, and I'm sure
Yes.
it's delicious. I want that fucking beluga caviar in my mouth.
Oh, well, I do have a fun, nifty factoid for any listeners out there who might be suffering through this pandemic by working at, say, Instacart or an Amazon Fresh, I assume, where you pick up from Whole Foods. Someone told me, quote unquote, that if you are working and doing a shop for someone, you're shopping for someone's groceries, they do not seem to meticulously review those receipts. So, go ahead and get yourself a soda, I'd chalk it up to just, but that must have been the customer before or after me, and you got mixed in with this stuff. Also, because you were shopping for someone else.
well,
Very
there's
easy to have an
usually
oversight.
security guards that are hanging around these high-priced items that are security details.
Well, yes, I'm saying if you want to steal from Whole Foods and you're already there in a professional capacity, that's the way to do it. Because
I'm gonna call
paid
Aaron.
for it, I guess. It's not
Right now?
technically-
Yeah, why not?
At 1 o'clock.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll probably go to voicemail. What's some hippie shit I could say to them about their chakras?
Well, okay. The thing I wanted to talk about was that they're coronavirus skeptics.
Area Infrared Sauna and Transit Cafe. Please leave your name, number, and a brief message, and we'll call you back as soon as we can. Thank you.
Fuck off, slumlord pieces of shit. Man, that was cool. I should threaten their kids sometime.
What kind of
that was not
accent
her.
was
That was the fakest goddamn
Yeah.
British accent I've ever heard from someone who wants to sound fancy.
The other part about this I wanted to talk about is that they are coronavirus skeptics.
Oh, of course they are.
This is fun.
This is
I'm
some
really
Jill
into
Steinbetter
shit. These fucking people who, before these vaccines are actually available, are already telling everyone who will listen.
I went in
they're
there
not gonna
and
get
was
it.
surprised
And
that she was not wearing a mask during the pandemic, and I thought,
this bitch was in her
Yeah.
shop not wearing a mask. What a fucking...
she, according to this article, she
Disgusting.
believes that she has antibodies, but at the brownstone that she also owns, they have anti-mask signs in their window. And her ex-fiance participated in the UK-based online discussion called Corona Talks, in which he was described as an outspoken against the civil liberties issues the lockdown raised.
Because her businesses got hurt.
His businesses also.
And their businesses got hurt, which is also why these people illegally went into their tenant spaces, because things are not going good for them. So anything goes. That's what happens when you are the owners, the big bosses, even when you're
Tune in next
yogis.
week and I'll tell you where her kids go to school.
No, those kids. Look,
I don't
gotta
gotta
let
do
those
anything,
kids
damn
get
it.
Old enough to. You know what? You're fucking right, man. We're not. You know what? Thanksgiving is canceled, and nothing matters.
I will say there was one time I went into there and I asked how she was doing, and she kind of. It was around the time that this article came. Well, around the time that they were getting protested. Apparently, they were also getting protested outside the cafe, and people were handing out leaflets, letting people know that they were slumlords, which they were taking down and calling the cops on these people. And she looked at me, and she had this pained wince on her face, and she goes, things are not going good. And I was like, la da 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 da, yeah, the pandemic sucks, and she's just obviously not in a mask. It felt weird because who says that to a customer? Things are not going well.
Somebody who is not used to dealing with some real low points. That sounds like somebody who expects you to respond to that statement with some.
Yeah, I thought I was going to be the next 23-year-old.
You know,
looking to colonialize with her.
Yeah, get some love children going, dude.
No, thank you. I don't need any of her juju.
Yeah.
Although they do make a pretty sweet latte, which I now feel bad for supporting.
Yeah, whatever. No ethical consumption.
and they've got a lot. They've got a lot
they make
of
their
nut
own
milks.
macadamia milks.
They do. I won't.
And they have a back patio where there's like a little cat that runs in through the yard and comes and plays. But it all seems very sad and retro.
You know, it's funny because I always got a weird vibe there, and my one coworker really liked to go there. But if I was gonna go to a coffee shop on that block, I'd
Hungry Ghost is right down the road.
I'd go to Hungry Ghost instead.
I would go to the bodega on the corner. That's $2 instead of like 10.
Yeah. Well, no, if I was like choosing to do the expensive coffee, I probably 9 times out of 10, I'm going to choose Hungry Ghost.
Now you're never going to go to Planted. And
yeah, I'm never going to
illegally
go. Maybe I'm
evict
going to walk
these
by
nuts.
there tomorrow and see.
I called them back.
Oh,
you did?
I hope that was one of the signs.
That was my second message I left there. I don't know. I think I'm going to do this for the next 24 hours. I've got nothing better to do.
That's true.
They are horrible.
Definitely
like a
true.
unique level of horribleness. Only because of the amount to which people can go, oh, you know, this is hypocritical. They're these liberal tree huggers. And, you know, they have all these ethics. And people can't process it or, like, can't view it outside of this lens of exploiters.
Mm-hmm. My favorite part of the article we keep referencing is the detail about a professor who liked there to yell, "You white, liberal, phony, fake, selfish motherfucker, you belong in a Charles Dickens novel." That bit stuck out to me. I wish I would have known this was happening very close to a place that I often am when it was happening, because I love to
harass away.
So,
they still exist.
They will still be at Planted tomorrow.
Yeah.
The children will be there with their 23-year-old man.
Traumatize their fucking kids. Absolutely.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? I take back my thing about being nice to the kids, because there was a part in the article when they were trying to illegally take over the apartment from their tenants. One of the tenants walked into the kitchen to find the 2 young children eating popsicles there, and one of them said to her, "It's so nice to be home."
I'm not saying do anything violent, but I am saying, you know, if you show violent imagery to the kids, you know, and not even show it direct.
No, you want to poison the children against their
I don't know,
parents.
just give them issues
is a more
you know,
just...
let those chips land where they may. But I'm not saying like direct violent imagery towards the children. I'm saying show violent imagery in the vicinity. You know, and you're not. That's just like that's what Barack Obama just calls a Tuesday.
Really, Clockwork Orange their children is what you're saying.
Yeah, no, like Clockwork Orange them. Absolutely, whatever the fuck that's called.
Play the Ninth Symphony.
Yeah, like Ludwig van or whatever the fuck.
It's a Ludovico.
Yeah, whatever. That movie sucks. I've always hated it. And I'm sure the book sucks too.
The book rocks. The book rocks.
What, a Clockwork
I'm sure
Orange?
it sucks. Like some like gas poetry or whatever the fuck. Like Yeah, it's just
my
like,
favorite kind of
in the
poetry.
future, like,
Gay ass
kids will,
poetry.
like, rape each other and, like, also fetishize Beethoven for some reason. I don't know. It's weird. I don't get it.
My favorite part of the article is the rats. The rats started appearing at the place.
Yeah, get some rats and toss them at the kids. In the direction of the kids.
Okay, but when tenants demanded Brooks Church take care of the rat situation, he warned them that their walls will be full of rat skeletons. Their souls will haunt you.
I need more details about this woman's background. I want more specific stories about these interactions.
Yeah, who's her
because
mom? What's her phone
if
number?
anybody said any number of these things that she's quoted as saying, I'm like, I would have fought this person. If somebody told me the souls of dead rats were going to haunt me.
That's also the guy.
I think. Oh, is it the guy? Well, it's still fighting words.
What's this mom's phone number? I don't know. This is all information.
Exactly. I want to know a little bit more about, because all I was finding is a lot of bullshit about their professional life and like kind of fluffy profiles of them from, like 2013-ish. But I was like, what's their
home address? Mail a dead rat to. Let their kids be haunted.
And the other thing is that, like, I'm pretty sure the sauna part of their business was like a recent addition. So they had spent, tens of thousands of dollars installing infrared saunas. And then, like, people weren't able to come out and use them.
I heard that there was, like, orgies going on. I don't know if it was the sauna place or the yoga place, but I know that there was at least one quote of a worker who walked in on a whole bunch of naked people in the studio. Also harassed a 22-year-old guy. Shepard Lance.
Harassing.
Yeah, what's
online, he advertised himself as a carpenter, a pet sitter, a waiter, and a handyman. He had modeled in a portfolio of erotic photography. He had been to Burning Man. He started working at Area doing odd jobs. He and Genville were seen holding hands and kissing in back of yoga.
Honestly, Steve, I think we need to do this deep plant thing where we get you to
planted?
Yeah, whatever. But we'll invent a whole new identity for you. You'll be the Manny. You'll start a long-term relationship with her and then just like break her heart in the most traumatic way possible that she like just develops an eating disorder from. Just like really fucking drive that shit.
You say this like she already doesn't. Like she's on a liquid diet. I've seen her have
shit. How do you double eating disorder someone? Fuck.
And she also, like, I've heard her say, like, the only way that she feels good is by going to yoga.
Well, then you need to emotionally disturb her so much that that works for her.
Yoga, spa, and vegan food.
I also want to know why the charges were dropped for the shoplifting before. Why didn't? What's the use of catching someone shoplifting?
If the only thing that makes her feel good is yoga, we need to take that away.
I can't believe she had a child. She had a child with a 22-year-old.
Yeah, dude.
I just want to emphasize for our listeners that this is not like a spectacularly hot 22-year-old by my standard. He looks like...
Okay, let me see this 22-year-old.
A reverse beard.
All right, I gotta find this 22-year-old now. Hold up. I want to see.
Guys, I'm so glad we're all in on hating these.
Okay. So I'm seeing this silver fox gentleman, but I assume he's not the 22-year-old. Is the 22-year-old pictured here in this article?
No, he's not. But here's his picture. I can.
Yeah, send me a picture.
Yeah, his
picture is so fucking nerdy.
I want to see how well our beautiful resident himbo Steven can step in. Oh yeah, Steve, you got this shit.
Guy?
Oh, 100%.
I think
Dude,
so.
We are
I
we
saw
can do
him.
this.
I really
Just enter a long-term relationship with her, and after like 15 years, ghost her.
I think I'm too old.
Dude, just get
Like,
clean
this kind of-
shaven. You can pass for like
She's
18.
in her mid-40s, pushing 50. She's looking to go younger and not.
Nah, man, you're selling yourself short. 100%.
I am being realistic about her desire. Back me up, Bunny. Midlife crisis.
She's only 46.
She's entering midlife crisis mode and financial crisis. She's not going to want to date a delivery boy for the Rite Aid across the street.
I'm just kind of amazed at there's so many stories about her and her ex-partner being such shitheads. But if you go through the Google results for their names, there are multiple bullshit fucking like local neighborhood
they were
blog
local
pieces
heroes
about like these amazing.
There's the beauty of this story is they are residential do-gooders who were like evil the whole time. And anyone that knew them knew they were evil. And they managed to create this simulation of themselves as this young, hip, entrepreneurial spirit of capitalism bringing gentrification and goodness to the area. When in reality, they were just exploiting people, driving up inequality, and charging way too fucking for coffee.
Yeah.
I'm glad we can talk about this, because
But yeah. Me too. Oh, also, I did think it was particularly funny, like the sauna studio, her intention with it was for it to be Brooklyn's first communal infrared sauna studio. And it's laughable to me, like how terrible, because I'm sure there's plenty of places that do infrared saunas now, but most of them feature like single booths that people can go into. She really emphasized this idea that it could be a communal experience, which, oh man. Anyway, fuck these people.
I'm sure we'll get back to this. I don't know if you heard this, Marlo, but we're going to circle back.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to find some more weird information.
Yeah, no, just dox the shit out of her.
Yeah, at one point,
our
she owned 14 different spaces for doing it. All right, guys, let's go.
Peace, bitches.
Bye.
The landlord's here to visit. They're blasting disco down below. Says I'm doubling the rent 'cause I'm building to